let's try something. Can you try to answer this question in English and you're not allowed to skip, to cut your sentence, to use fillers, or to take time to think silently before answering? I'm gonna ask you the question. What did you do last weekend? If you're a normal person, this microphone is not plugged, doesn't work. If you're a normal person, it's extremely hard to answer this question without using any fillers. Unless you're really preparing for TED Talks and you're an expert in public speaking, speaking a language without using fillers, without cutting your sentence in half, is extremely hard. Just pay attention to the way I'm speaking. This is a YouTube video. I'm speaking in a way that is non-natural in a conversation. I'm really paying attention to the way I'm delivering words. This is not my native language, of course, so we can expect some mistakes. But if we transcribe what I'm saying right now, it's messy. And if we transcribe most natural conversations from native speaker in any language, English, French, Japanese, whatever we want, it's messy. If you look at a conversation on a Netflix show, most of the time it sounds off in a lot of very well-written shows. If you look at Friends, if you look at The Office, maybe not The Office because they have a very realistic tone. But if you look at most shows, actually people don't really speak in a way that they will speak in real life. A lot of their sentences are extremely informative. They make the plot move. But in real life, we are messy. So in this video, I'm gonna teach you how to speak French in a messy way, in a shitty way, as bad as a native speaker. Because I don't know why, but somebody decided that when you learn a language, you should aim to speak better than natives. Like you should speak better French than native speakers. That means not using fillers, making perfectly grammatically correct sentences one after another. And we see that in a classroom, like you have the teacher asking a question. Depuis combien de temps tu apprends le français? How long have you been learning French? Depuis combien de temps tu apprends le français? What we're expecting is a correct answer from the first try without hesitation, or maybe just a pause before, but no fillers, no cutting in the middle. While in real life, the answer would be like something like ouais, je sais pas, ça doit faire 4 mois, un truc comme ça. That's not what is expecting in a classroom, but that's an extremely natural answer in French, just like in English. Like, how long have you been learning French? Well, I don't know, it's been probably like 4 months, something. That's very different from, I've been studying French for 4 months. We don't speak like that. That's a fucking robot. We don't speak like a fucking robot. So, in this video, I'm gonna talk about fillers and how to sound like a native. And it's not very hard. Just means like, don't answer don't speak like you're from a French textbook. Speak like a normal human being. You just need the tools to speak like a normal human being. I will give you a small story. When I was learning Polish, I did a challenge, like something stupid, like to be able to have 15 minutes of conversation in Polish with a week of learning. It's on my other YouTube channel. And it was not that hard because it's hard. It means a lot of studying, a lot of practicing. I mean, not really studying. I didn't study anything. I practiced a lot of conversation, learned a lot of sentences. And specifically, I learned a lot of sentences that saves me time, okay? But these sentences make you sound like a native. So, first sentence, first trick. Every time somebody asks you a question, you answer with ah, c'est une bonne question. That's a good question. C'est une bonne question. And I was doing that in Polish. At first, it saves you time. Secondly, it makes you sound like a native because what happens to a lot of language learners, when they hear a question, they freeze. This is the worst thing you can do. Rule number one is communicate first. If I ask you a question, like, depuis combien de temps tu apprends le français? And your reaction is, first, if we're on Skype, I will worry if the camera is still froze. I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if you understood me. I don't know if you're thinking. I don't know if you don't want to talk. And in real life, if this happens, if you have zero communication, I have no idea what's going on as a native speaker talking to you. So the first thing is communicate in the language. And if you can communicate that you understood or you didn't understand, that's even better. So, c'est une bonne question. That's something positive to say. Always good to say positive stuff by default. I mean, of course, you speak English. You're part of this culture of very positive. But say something positive, save time. C'est une bonne question. On peut aussi dire laisse-moi réfléchir. We can also say laisse-moi réfléchir, let me think. Ah, c'est une bonne question. Laisse-moi réfléchir, let me think. And that's kind of funny because sometimes, people will ask you, how old are you? And it's actually now you made a joke in French, like somebody asks you like, and how old are you by the way? And you're like, that's a great question, let me think. And suddenly you have a sense of humor in a new language. It's that simple. Because again, we are in a small talk situation. In a small talk situation, people want to see who you are. Are you fun? Can we have this conversation in the language we are trying to have? Can you speak French? And if you answer something stupid like this, it's obviously a bit funny, but you understood the question, like, et t'as quel âge? Or quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge as-tu? Tons of ways of asking questions in French, unfortunately. And you answer, that's a great question. C'est une bonne question. Ouais, c'est une bonne question. Laisse-moi réfléchir. And then you give your answer. So, as the first filler, c'est une bonne question. Laisse-moi réfléchir. So when I was doing this in Polish, what happened is that at first it was just like a thing I was saying to save time. But after 10 minutes of conversation, the other person I was talking to understood that I was using that every time. And it became a joke. But the truth is, okay, like people say, hey, that's a joke, but like that's not really speaking the language. Well, that's one of the sentences I remember the most in Polish to this day. It's like, to jest dobre pytanie. To jest dobre pytanie. That's a good question. Okay, another thing I use a lot when I learn a language is fun fact. So it's hard to translate in French when they're c'est intéressant. Ça c'est intéressant, that's interesting. Like somebody will ask you, et d'où est-ce que tu viens? Like, where are you from? And if you're a normal person, you probably grew up in a town, studied in another for a while, and then just moved to another, or like you lived mostly in a city. So like, it's always hard to explain, we move a lot. So most of the time, you cannot answer one city, or it's hard to explain because you come from a small town and it's not in an area that people know. So you say, c'est une bonne question. En fait, c'est intéressant. C'est intéressant. It's interesting, like fun fact, interesting fact. And then you explain a bit more where you're from. So now, using this trick, and I can teach you a lot more if you follow this channel and if you take lessons with me, of course. Using these tricks, you can really expand your conversations from somebody asking you, I will do it in English for the sake of simplicity. So where are you from? And you say, I'm from New York. Or even worse, like with the communication, like I am from New York. I don't know how to like make it sound like classroom. Like, d'où est-ce que vous venez? Je viens de New York. And that's empty. We don't want information. This is small talk. Nobody gives a fuck about where you're from, really. Like, maybe it would be interesting, but people want to see how you communicate. That's what they want. So instead of saying, I'm from New York, which is an answer in normal human communication means leave me alone, even more if you're from New York. It means leave me alone. Like I'm from New York. Like somebody you ask, small talk with somebody sitting next to you in a place. Where are you from? I'm from New York. That's the end of the conversation. The person doesn't want to talk to you. Alternative, where are you from? That's a good question actually. So fun fact, I'm actually originally from Ohio, but I moved to New York when I was 12. So I guess I'm from New York. If you answer that, you're giving a lot more, not just the information that you're from Ohio originally or whatever, but like you're adding communication. And communication is not only in words, it's like in the amount of things you're ready to communicate. So it's hard in English, it's hard in French, so you better be prepared to do that in French by learning useful tricks to make your conversation longer. All right, that's all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you ever find it, leave a comment, subscribe, and talk to you soon for more tips on how to learn French.